Hey everyone, I'm coming back at you with another unofficial solo Automa. This time it's for Harmonies. You might notice the Redwood manual over there on your left. I thought I might go a little Pixar on you and give you a little sneak peek at what my next Automa slash AI slash solo system will be, because this won't be introducing an Automa, but it's going to be introducing a 12 scenario solo campaign where you're trying to win the nation's top photographer of the year award, and it's very chill, very tranquil type of game. But you're not here for Redwood, you are here for Harmonies, so let's get to it. Harmonies comes with a beat your own score solo system in the box, and that's fine if you like that, but some of us prefer a win-loss condition, and so that is what this Automa aims to do. It aims to replicate a two-player experience, giving you an opponent, his name is Steve, to play against. You have three difficulties to choose from: easy, normal, and hard, and it's also compatible with Side B, as well as Nature's Spirit module. All right, to set up, you're going to set up as you would in a two-player game. You're going to have your supply board. You want to make sure that this point is pointing towards you, as you'll be the first player. I've gone ahead and put 3 tokens on each spot. Next, you want to go ahead and take out Steve's personal board. You can either choose side A or you can choose side B. I would say to either laminate this, which is what I've done, or as you play, put it into like a Ziploc bag. That way you don't have to print off one of these every time you play, because you will be riding on this. It's kind of like a flip and ride almost. So component you'll need is this double-sided. You can print this double-sided and it comes out great and it lines up perfectly. And you're just going to put this down to the side. And then no matter if you're playing on side A or B, you're going to see these 3 orange cubes. Steve is not going to use orange cubes and putting them, it's not going to put them on cards whenever he gains them like you would. Like normally you would put an orange cube on the 5 and the 12 when you gain a card, and as you make animals, you take them off the card and put them on your board. Steve's not going to do that. So as he gains animals, you don't need to put orange cubes on his cards, but at the setup, you will place 3 orange cubes right here in this little box, and we'll go over how that works here in a second. You're going to draw 5 cards, just like you would in a multiplayer game, and then you're going to reveal the top card of the deck, and you're going to give that to Steve, and it's going to go into his leftmost spot. As you can see here, just like you, he has spots above his board for 4 animals, just like you do. Then you're going to print out the 9-card Automa deck that Steve has. You're going to find the one card that has this refresh symbol. Just put that off to the side for now. You're going to take the rest of the cards. You're going to give them a good shuffle. You're going to take 2 of them without looking. Take that third, the third shuffle Automa deck card. We're going to go ahead and shuffle those. Give that a good shuffle. And then this will be the bottom of his deck, and then these cards will just go on top of it. And what I like to do is just place them below his board. And then lastly, I have a dry erase marker ready to go to mark on his sheet. So let's go over a quick overview of how Steve works, and then we'll go into more detail on each of his sections. So you are the first player, and you will take your turn just like you would in a normal game. You might take a card, you'll take tokens. Whenever you take tokens and add them to the board, make sure you refill the board. Likewise, Steve will do the same. Whenever he takes tokens and puts them in his play area, he will refill the board as well. I did take a special rule from the solo game, because I've seen some comments about this in the multiplayer game that people wish that this rule was in there, because this card market can get a little stagnant. So what you can do on your turn, instead of taking a card, you can discard a card from the market and just refresh it. You can't take one after that. You are foregoing taking a card and adding it to above your player board. Use this to your advantage, because there are some cards that are easier for Steve to complete. Like this one only has 3 tokens on it, whereas this one has 6, and this one will score him 5 points on normal. But if he completes this one, he only needs 3 tokens, and on normal, it's going to score him 9. Use this to your advantage to make sure that Steve's not getting potentially some easier cards to complete. All right, so what is Steve going to do on his turn? There's a quick overview on his player board, but what he's going to do, he's going to flip over the top card of his deck, and then he's going to potentially take an animal card from the supply. Then he's going to look to try to take and place tokens. He will reference this diagram here, and whatever space is highlighted in blue is what he would take. So in this case, he would try to take this brown, gray, and brown. Next, based off the 3 tokens that he takes, he's going to go to his player board and mark off bubbles going from left to right in the designated section. So if he takes 2 browns, he would mark off these 2 browns. If he got a gray, he would mark off this gray. Lastly, he would take the 3 tokens that he gained this turn, as well as any tokens that he had remaining from a previous turn, and would try to place them on cards going from left to right. So if he had multiple cards here, he would try to place tokens matching token colors on this left card, and then if he couldn't place any more, he would go to the next card, and then the next card, and so on and so forth. Then you will check for any completed animals. A complete animal just means that it has all the tokens that it requires on this card. So for instance, this one needs a green, a brown. This one back here is a green and brown. And then this one is a red and either a gray, red, or brown. At that time, any cards that are complete are going to be turned face down. All the tokens on them are just going to go off to the side for a second. He's going to discard down to a number of tokens, but any completed cards are going to be removed from his line and put face down. He will score these at the end of the game, and then any cards that remain are going to slide to the left. So let's say look like this. He completed this card by having the amount of tokens on them. It comes off. This card will slide down to the left. You're going to take all the tokens that remain that are not on cards, and he's going to keep 3 of them. And we'll talk about that here in a second with how he decides which 3 to keep, but he'll keep those 3 on his token pool. And when the next turn comes around, once again, he will take his 3 from the supply, his 3 tokens, and then if he has any tokens here, he will add those to the 3 and potentially try to place those on the cards up above. Next, you're going to check to see if Steve has triggered in game, and we'll talk about that here in a few minutes. Lastly, if you happened to draw this card for Steve, he will shuffle his Automa deck at the end of his turn. So he'll take all of the cards, including this one, in his discard pile, put them back on top of his deck, give them a shuffle to create a new Automa deck. So let's go ahead and look at a Steve turn in detail. So you've taken your turn, you've taken 3 tokens from the board, you've refilled the supply, and now it's Steve's turn. He simply flips over the top card of his deck. And so the first thing you're going to check to see is if he takes an animal card. All of the cards except for one has him taking potentially an animal card. Let's look at kind of what this language says. So he wants to take an animal card, and he wants to preference red. So if there's any red in the supply, he wants to take a red. If there are no red in the supply, he wants to take a green. If there's no green in the supply, then he'll take a yellow, so on and so forth. But Steve cannot have more than 2 of the same color at a time above his player board. So let's pretend this is what his personal board looked like, and he drew this. He says, okay, I want a red. And we'll talk about this restriction as well. So, but let's ignore this for a second. He says, I want a red. Well, he currently has 2 red, so he will not take another red because it says no more than 2 of a single color. Now, if he completes this one on a future turn, and then he were to draw this card, and it says, I want a red, then of course he'll take a red. But if he has 2 red, and that's his preferred color, he will not take one. Additionally, the other restriction he will check to see if he'll take an animal card is this less than number. So in this case, it's less than 2. If Steve has less than 2 cards above his player board, he will take an animal card. So in this case, he has 2. He doesn't have less than 2, so he will just straight up skip this action. Let's see if I can find another one. So this one says, if Steve has less than 3 cards, he's going to take a card. He does have less than 3, so he wants green. Looking at the animal card supply, there is 1 green in the row, so he'll take this and he'll add it to the rightmost spot available. So he'll add it right here to this 3rd spot that's available. If there was more than 1 green in the supply, he always prefers the leftmost. But going back to the card, it says if he has less than 2, check. He'll take a red. Does he have 2 or more reds? No. So he'll take the leftmost red in the supply, which is this one, and he'll simply add it to his player board, and then he will refill the animal supply. Then he looks at this section here. He's going to try to take and place tokens. So he'll take the section that's highlighted in blue. So that's this top section, and he'll take that brown, gray, and brown. Now this is where the flip and right kind of comes into play. So you're going to look at Steve's board, and you're just going to look for the different sections that require these colors. So green and brown are going to go in trees, gray are going to go into mountains, yellow fields, red buildings, and blue, of course, water. So whenever Steve is filling in bubbles, he's going to fill in left to right. So in this case, he has 2 browns, so he'll fill in the leftmost browns, and then he'll fill in the leftmost gray. So now he goes to place tokens, and he has these 3 tokens because this is the first turn, so he has no tokens in his token pool. And so he's going to try to place all the tokens on 1 card, and if the colors don't match, he'll go to the next card. So right off the bat, we have a good example of things that might come up. In this case, he needs 2 yellows, a red, and then a wild. And the wild could either be gray, red, or brown. Well, he has a gray and a brown, so what does he place there as the base for that building? I don't want you making that decision as the player. He needs to make that decision. So at the bottom of his AI cards, you'll look at the one drawn for this turn, and going from left to right, this is the preference that he wants. So going from left to right, he wants to see, does gray or brown show up first? In this case, it's gray. So he'll place this token on this card. These 2 browns cannot go on this card, so then he'll look to place them on the next card. Well, this one needs a brown, a green, a brown, a green, and a wild and a red. So he'll go ahead and place these 2 browns to match the 2 browns. And then that is the end of him placing tokens. Now let's say he didn't have this gray. Let's say he had a blue and 2 browns. When he goes to place these 3 on these cards, and actually this is not a good example, so let's do 2 more. Let's do 2 waters and a green. So he goes to place these. He cannot place any on this one because none of the colors match. Whenever he cannot place tokens on the furthest left card only, he will simply place an orange cube on that card. If he ever gets 3 orange cubes on this card, that card will get completed. All of the tokens will come off of it, and the orange cubes. The orange cubes will go back to his board to use for future turns, and then all the cards will slide down once it's complete. That only is applicable to the leftmost card. If he can't put tokens on the 2nd, 3rd, or 4th slot, he will not put orange cubes on those. Let's say it's turn 2. Let's say it's a future turn, and this is what his board looks like. He's placed a couple of tokens on here. He's placed a couple of tokens on here. He just drew these 3 tokens, and then he has 3 tokens left in his supply. And you might be wondering, well, how does he have 3 tokens left in his supply? We'll talk about that here in a second. So he's going to try to place these 6 tokens on the leftmost card, and we can see that this one requires a yellow, this one requires a yellow, and that's going to complete that card, so it doesn't need any more tokens. So now we'll go to the next card, and this one needs a wild and a red, so it will take the brown since there's no, gray since there's no brown, and he'll place those 2 on here. Steve has no more cards in his supply above his player board, so he can't place these, so we'll just place them down for a second. Since you've already tried to place all the tokens and no more can be placed, we're going to check for completed cards. Well, he has 2 complete, so we're going to slide all of these off. We're going to put these face down next to his board. He will score those at the end of the game. And then he has all these tokens. What does he do with these tokens? If there were any other cards here, he would not try to place them on those cards because you have already placed all the tokens for this turn on the cards. But what he will do is he will add up to 3 of these to his pool to use for next turn. And then all the other ones are discarded. Well, which 3 does he pick? Once again, check this bottommost preference. He wants red, green, and then gray. So he'll take this red, green, and then gray, and he will keep these and discard the rest. When he keeps them, he'll just place them on his token pool, and this is to remind you that he can keep up to 3 tokens in between turns. All these other ones would be discarded to the game box. They will not be put back in the bag. Let's say Steve takes a brown, a green, and a green on his turn. Well, the brown, he will just check off the leftmost brown. And the greens, he has 2 of them. What he will do is he will mark off the leftmost green. Well, all these other greens have been marked off, so he'll mark off this one. And then he still has 1 left, but there's no more spots for green. So what does he do? Well, whenever he can't mark a spot off in the different sections because there's no more spots remaining, then he will go down to this section down here and he will mark off the leftmost box. In the case of the first one, nothing happens. It's a white box. However, let's say now it was his turn. He got a brown and 2 greens. He marks off the leftmost brown box. 2 greens, there's no more greens available. So he'll come down here and mark off the next 2 boxes. In this case, a red and a blue. Okay, well, when he marks off a colored circle, he will mark off a circle in that corresponding section. So in this case, red, so he'll mark off the leftmost unmarked one, and then blue, he'll mark off this one. All right, after Steve has placed tokens on cards, checked for completed cards above his board, taken them and flipped them face down if they've been completed, discards down to 3 unused tokens heading into the next turn. The next thing he'll do is check for in-game trigger. Some of these cards don't have an in-game trigger, while others do. Whenever you flip over an AI card and it has this symbol on it, you will simply mark off the leftmost end of game trigger bubble. If you ever mark off the last one, in side A it's 4 bubbles, in side B it's 5 bubbles. If you ever mark off the last one, you will check your player board to see if you have less than or equal to 4 empty spaces on your board. If you do, then the game will end after Steve's turn because you're going to play an equal number of turns and you were the first player, so it will end at the end of the round and Steve will end the round with his turn. However, if let's say you had 5 empty spaces on your board, then the game will not end. It will play another round, and at the end of that round, you will check to see if you have less than or equal to 4 empty spaces, and if you do, the game will end, and you'll keep checking this once he's hit this trigger. Once the end game has been triggered, either by you triggering it with having 2 or less spaces, or by Steve triggering it with his special thing here, you're going to go to end game scoring, and you can use the score pad that comes with the game. You score exactly the same as in a multiplayer game. For Steve, you're going to reference the side that you're playing on. So for trees, you're going to score points, or Steve's going to score points for each spot that is completely filled in. So Steve's trees would score 7 plus 3 plus 1. Nope, didn't get this one because that brown is not scratched off, plus 1. So it was at 10, 11, 12 total points. But if that brown had been marked off, then he would have scored 12 plus 7, so 19. Mountains, just like you, have to be connected to other mountains to score. So you can see this 3 tall mountain plus this 1 tall mountain. They're all marked. So it would score 8, just like you would, because there's 7 points for this one and 1 point for that one. But over here, while he completed this 2 mountain range, this one that it's connected to was not completed. So this one would not score at all, and his total points for mountains would be 8. For fields, once again, it kind of works similar to trees. He would score 5 points for this field, no points for this field because that third bubble wasn't filled in. For buildings, he would score 5, 10 points. He was one bubble away from getting 15 points. Down here, he's going to score the rightmost number. So in this case, it would be 5. If he would have got one more, he would have scored 8 points. So you're going to go through this for each section, just like you would look at your board to see what you scored for each of the terrain types. And you would mark down on the scorecard what Steve scored. For side B, I just want to make a note that the only difference really is the water. And once again, you're scoring the rightmost number filled out. So if you had all 4 of these filled out and only 2 of these in this 15 bar, he would score 10. But if he got these first 7 filled out, he wouldn't score 10 plus 15 for 25. He would score 15. Next, you're going to score Steve's animals. On easy difficulty, you're always going to look at his completed animals and score the third highest number. So in this case, not that one, he would score 8. This far right card, he would score 5. In the case whether there's only 2 of them, they would score the lower of the numbers. So in this case, for easy mode, they would score 8 plus 5 plus 5 for a total of 18 for their completed animals. On normal and hard, you're going to score the second highest number. And you might be thinking, well, that's the same for normal and hard. Additionally, hard scores an additional 4 points per completed card that Steve's done. So in this case, he would score 16, 9, and 14, whereas on normal, he would only score 12, 5, and 10. So you can look at the board, the score sheet, and just write in the different animals they scored. And then you're going to look at the animals above his board that have at least 1 token on them. And on normal and hard, Steve's going to score the lowest number shown on them. So in this case, they both had tokens on them. And so they would score 5 and 4. If you're playing with the Nature Spirit module, you're going to give yourself a Nature Spirit module just like you would in a multiplayer game. I think you get 2, and then you discard down to 1. Steve does not get one at the beginning of the game. The only difference when playing with this Spirit module is that if you're playing on easy, you're going to give Steve an additional 15 points. If playing on normal, Steve will get an additional 20. And if you're playing on hard, Steve will score an additional 25. If the game ends in a tie, then I believe the rules say that it's the person with the most number of orange cubes on their board, so aka the most number of animals completed. And since Steve doesn't use animal cubes, the way to do it is to look at whatever difficulty you're playing on. So if he's playing on normal, so normally it would be this, you would look at this second highest number, you would count all of the ones under them. So if these are my 3 completed cards, at the end of the game, on normal difficulty, the tiebreaker would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And then these 2 cards that have at least 1 token on them, 8, 9. And at that point, whoever has the most wins. All right, I think I got everything. I will be doing a full playthrough showcasing the Automa in case anything was confusing, so you can see it in action. If you have any questions or comments, you can either reply to the Facebook post or the BGG post or the Geek List, and or the YouTube comments, and I'll be happy to answer your questions. Good luck. I hope you have fun.